The summer sun filtered through the tall oaks that framed the grand estate of Ethan Hartford, a man whose name had once been synonymous with success, brilliance, and unshakable confidence. But that was before the accident, before the world he'd so carefully built collapsed in a single night of screeching tires and shattered glass. For 3 years now, Ethan had lived in silence inside those stone walls, where even laughter sounded like a ghost. His twin sons, barely toddlers when their mother passed, had grown up surrounded by nannies who came and went, never lasting long under the cold, unapproachable weight of Ethan's grief. He didn't mean to be harsh. He was simply broken. Every morning he'd walk down the long marble hallway, glance into the nursery, and see the same 2 pairs of eyes, soft, innocent, and painfully familiar, staring back at him, reminding him of what he'd lost. So, when the agency sent a new nanny named Clara Bennett, Ethan didn't expect much. Another kind smile, another temporary fixture in his fractured household. But that morning would change everything. Clara was different the moment she stepped onto the property. She wasn't intimidated by the mansion's silence or the man's cold demeanor. She greeted him with a gentle warmth that startled him, and though he barely nodded, she smiled anyway. The twins, Oliver and Owen, took to her instantly, her laughter bright as wind chimes, her patience endless. While other nannies treated their job as a list of instructions, Clara seemed to live inside the children's world. She built cardboard castles, told bedtime stories that turned the nursery into galaxies, and sang lullabies even when no one was listening. And slowly, the house began to sound alive again. Ethan noticed it first in small moments, the echo of giggles down the hallway, the faint hum of a song drifting through the open kitchen door. At first, it hurt. Every sound reminded him of his late wife's voice. But then something strange began to happen, it started to heal. One afternoon, Ethan returned early from a meeting. His driver pulled into the gravel driveway, and as he stepped out, he heard laughter, pure, ringing, uncontrollable laughter. It came from the back garden. Curiosity tugged at him, and for the first time in years, instead of retreating to his office, he followed the sound. The sight that met him under the golden light of late afternoon stopped him cold. Clara knelt beside a large metal barrel half filled with water. His twin boys sat inside, splashing and giggling, their tiny hands sending droplets flying through the air like diamonds. Clara's sleeves were rolled up, her hair tied in a loose ponytail, and she was laughing, really laughing, as she gently poured water over one of the boys' heads. The simplicity of it all hit Ethan like a wave. No toys, no grand gestures, no lavish playrooms. Just love, sunshine, and a barrel filled with joy. He stood there, frozen in the shadow of the house, watching as Clara whispered something that made both boys erupt in squeals of delight. For a moment, he saw his wife in her, the same kindness, the same tenderness, but it wasn't a cruel resemblance. It was something else. Something alive. Something that reminded him that beauty hadn't died with the past. Clara noticed him after a while. Her laughter faded into surprise, then embarrassment. "Oh, Mr. Hartford. I'm so sorry, they were fussing and I thought this might cheer them up," she stammered, wiping her wet hands on her apron. But Ethan said nothing. He simply stared at the boys, at their smiles, their sparkling eyes, and something inside him cracked open. He took a few steps closer, crouched beside the barrel, and dipped his hand into the cool water. The twins squealed and splashed him, and to everyone's shock, including his own, Ethan Hartford, the stone-hearted businessman, laughed. Really laughed. It sounded rusty at first, like a forgotten song, but Clara's eyes softened, and the twins clapped their tiny hands as if they'd just performed a miracle. From that day on, things began to change. Ethan found himself lingering around the garden more often, pretending to check emails while secretly watching Clara and the twins play. He started joining them, first for minutes, then for hours. He'd push the boys on the swing, read them bedtime stories when Clara was too tired, and sometimes, late at night, he'd find himself thinking about her, about the way she hummed as she cooked, the way she listened without judgment, the way she never asked for more than what was given. There was a grace in her presence, something deeply human and healing. One evening, the rain poured down in thick, steady sheets, and a thunderstorm knocked the power out. The mansion was cloaked in darkness except for the faint glow of a few candles Clara had lit. Ethan found her in the living room, wrapped in a blanket, the twins asleep on either side of her. She looked up when he entered, her face bathed in soft candlelight. "They were scared," she whispered, smiling faintly. Thunder doesn't sit well with them. He nodded and sat down across from her, the air heavy with quiet warmth. For a long time, neither spoke. The rain filled the silence. Then, softly, Ethan said, "You've brought something back to this house, Clara." She blinked, unsure how to respond. "I didn't think I could ever hear them laugh again," he added. Her lips parted, but the words didn't come. Instead, she just looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, she saw not the millionaire, not the employer, but the men who had loved deeply and lost terribly. Their eyes met, and the world seemed to still for a heartbeat. Days turned into weeks. Rumors began to stir among the household staff, whispers of how the once reclusive widower now smiled at breakfast, how he lingered by the nursery door just to hear Clara's laughter. But neither of them spoke of it. Ethan respected the boundaries, knowing she worked for him, and Clara, though she felt something stir inside her chest each time their eyes met, told herself it was just admiration. She reminded herself of the distance between their worlds. But love, when real, doesn't ask for permission, it just grows quietly, until it fills every corner of your heart. One morning, as autumn crept into the garden, Clara found a small envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside was a handwritten note from Ethan. "Meet me by the oak tree after sunset." Her heart raced. That evening, as the sky blazed in orange and purple, she walked to the garden and found him waiting, dressed not in his usual suit, but in a simple shirt, sleeves rolled, looking younger than she'd ever seen him. "I wanted to thank you," he said softly, hands clasped behind his back. "For bringing life back into this place, for bringing life back into me." Before she could respond, he pulled out something from his pocket, a small, carved wooden toy. "It was the last thing my wife ever gave me," he murmured. "I couldn't look at it for years. But today, I want the twins to have it. Because I think she'd have liked you." Clara's throat tightened. She felt tears sting her eyes as she whispered, "I don't know what to say." Ethan smiled sadly. "Just stay," he said. "Stay with them, with us." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it the soft laughter of the twins playing in the distance. For the first time in years, Ethan felt peace. Not because he had forgotten the past, but because, standing there beneath the golden leaves, he realized something profound. Love doesn't replace what we lose, it reminds us that we can still feel, still hope, still begin again. And as Clara nodded, her heart trembling with the quiet courage of a new beginning, he knew that the barrel in the garden wasn't just a moment of play, it was the rebirth of everything he thought was gone forever. When Ethan turned to walk her back toward the house, his hand brushed against hers, just lightly, accidentally, and yet both of them felt the spark, the undeniable pulse of something real. Neither spoke of it that night, but as she tucked the twins into bed and he watched from the doorway, their eyes met once more, saying all that words could not. And maybe, just maybe, fate had given them a second chance. If this story touched your heart, whispered the narrator's voice over the fading scene of the glowing house, don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us that even after loss, love can find a way home.